let's speak about Manchester United's top 4 hopes then. Obviously, mathematically, still very possible. But the eye test and just watching Manchester United against Everton, Rene, do you think they have a realistic chance of playing Champions League next season?
Well, if they keep continuing to play like this, no, they don't. I thought there was a lack of conviction, a lack of intensity. Like I said, like Rangnick says there, we started okay in the first 25 minutes, but didn't really create enough apart from the sort of half chances that Rashford had. And then after the goal, it was really anything to shout about apart from that last chance that Cristiano had with Pickford saved. But no, they have to, they, as you said, Michelle, yourself, they look disjointed. It's not like there's no flow. It looks laboured. It looks predictable. So, they have to really stick their heads together and say, listen, what do we want out of these remaining games, starting by the next game at home to Norwich? You would want a really dynamic, convincing United beating Norwich, who's fighting for their own lives, at Old Trafford, to making sure that you don't lose the fans for the last 7 games. Because if you play like this, these are the last things that the United fans want to see. A team that doesn't really produce the performances that they expect from Man United. So
the entire purpose of bringing Ralf Rangnick in, one, because they didn't find the right permanent manager at that point in time. So they thought the idea, okay, we'll have Rangnick in as interim manager to lay the foundations for the permanent manager. But are those foundations evident enough? Do you think there have been significant improvements, or do they think they look worse than when they were under Ole? And I'm not talking about Ole this season. Obviously, he had a bad run. But I'm talking about Ole of the past 2 seasons where they actually looked exciting to watch, Rene. Do you think this side is actually worse than that?
Well, I do honestly think that when they made the decision to bring Rangnick in, I don't think that it was necessarily... They brought him in as a part-time manager because I think they wanted to create sort of a safety net for them. Honestly, I do think Rangnick himself was quite keen maybe to take the manager's job and to get it for 3 years. United didn't want to take that risk because they just got rid of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Nobody knows too much about Rangnick apart from what he's done in Germany, but not sort of outside. So they said, yes, let's start with the 6 months. And if you really do really well and you convince us, then obviously we can still swing your way and give you the job. Now, that hasn't happened because they've been knocked out of every cup competition. And therefore, they've given them a little bit more time to look at who's going to be the next new managers. And we all know all the names that's been flying about, of Pochettino, Ten Hag, even Brendan Rodgers in the early stages. But you have to say that structurally, for a club of Manchester United to be coming in this position, is just actually not good, and it's not acceptable. And so there are some structural things that are not right in terms of the organisation, in terms of the recruitment. It has an effect on the identity that United has. And looking forward, I've been asked that question many, many times. The big challenge that the new manager is going to have is to say, okay, what have I got here in the squad now with these players? And who are the players we're going to retain? What can I bring in? And have I then got a squad that is good enough to start challenging against Liverpool and City, for the title? Because that's what United is supposed to do. And at this moment in time, I can't see it. So that is going to be an unbelievable task ahead for whoever is going to be the next manager.
And the name that's been circulated the most that is supposedly at the forefront of this race to be the next Manchester United permanent manager is Erik Ten Hag. But having heard all these issues, these deep-rooted issues in the club, do you think perhaps that this Erik Ten Hag, might it be a job that he will underestimate? Because coming from an Ajax side, as successful and as much history as Ajax has, they are a smaller club in comparison to Manchester United when you look at a global commercial perspective as well. Ajax is also a much better run club. They've got great advice with great influence from ex-pros, some of their ex-players. They've got great leaders at the top, Rene. This is a huge jump. If it is Erik Ten Hag, this is a massive jump, not just talking about what's happening on the pitch, but everywhere else as well.
Absolutely, it will be a very big jump for him. You can't compare the two clubs at all, because Ajax is playing in a league where they're very dominant over most of the years. They've like you said, a very well run club. You know, and also the Eredivisie is a completely different league than the Premier League. The Premier League is the most difficult league in the world. It's so diverse. You cannot turn up to a bottom four team, and we saw that today again. You know, and think, you know, you're going to just pick up the 3 points. Ajax can win 70 or 80% of their games on 70% of their talent or what they need. So that is one of the big things. The other big things is, again, Manchester United is a bigger club, more difficult league. Expectations play a massive role. However, I'm sure that Eric will be looking at it very, very closely. He had his experience, obviously, for a few years at Bayern Munich, another big club on a big, European stage. So he knows how a big club should be run. And it all depends, because at the end of the day, whoever is going to take over, he has to do his homework. He has to do his due diligence, and he needs to make sure that he got everything in place for him to become successful. If you haven't got that, you already start, almost on a losing way. So he has to really make sure that he's got these things blocked off before he decides to say yes to such a big challenge.
Do you think he is the right man, Jermaine, all things considered, and considering the fact that, like Rene mentioned, Eredivisie is different? He's never really managed outside of the Netherlands, other than being, I think, reserve manager for Bayern Munich under Pep Guardiola, and it's a massive jump.
It's a humongous jump. If he is going to get the job, I don't think he could do it all by himself. He definitely needs a strong structure and a strong unit around him. He needs to have a really, really good connection with the director of football, the sporting director, the owners as well, to make sure that they're all on the same page. Because if there's any discrepancies between what the manager wants and what the sporting directors want, then there's going to be some kind of a huge issue that's only going to end one way, and that's with the manager getting the sack. So as long as they're all on the same page and they're all pushing and fighting for the same thing, and they could come to an agreement over what it is over what direction they see the club going in and the type of players they want to bring in, then absolutely, I think he's the right man. He's had experience managing, and he's built up a great connection of contacts as well that he'll be able to lean on for advice. So possibly. Do
you think, Jermaine, that he has the right appeal to attract the kind of players that Manchester United will be looking to acquire in the summer? This being said, if Manchester United do not qualify for Champions League football, back in 2016, I think there was one occasion where United didn't qualify for Champions League football. They managed to get Paul Pogba because Jose Mourinho was the manager. Do you think Ten Hag has the right appeal?
Look, we're talking about one of the giants of global football, of world football. This is Manchester United. They should be able to attract any and every player. And if they're not in the Champions League, it will only be for a season if they're able to bring the right players in at the right time. They got the right manager at the right time also. Now, if it means they have to pay a little bit over the odds to get those players in for a season without Champions League football to push them on to get into a Champions League spot the following season, then I think that's the direction they're going to have to go down. It's not ideal, don't get me wrong, but we're talking about a football club who is known worldwide. It's always been one of the biggest football clubs in the world. So they should be able to flex their financial muscles to make sure that they're able to put themselves back in that sort of situation, and that would be the way to do it.
So as an outsider, as somewhat of a neutral, Jermaine, when you look at Manchester United, what is their biggest problem that they need to address? And how did it come to this point where they've fallen so far behind against the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City?
I just don't think they strengthened in the right areas at the right times. They spent a lot of money on players that I don't really feel like they needed to at that time, or to buy those players. So I think if Harry Maguire was available for 40 million, half of what he was paid, I think it would be a great bit of business. I don't think there's any problems with him defending. I think the problem that he has is that he's being compared with Virgil van Dijk, who costs less than him. Now, that's not his fault. You know, he's only, you can only base that on what a club is prepared to pay for you. That's what value you are. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, the same thing, is 50 odd million pounds from Crystal Palace. Now, I don't think he's a 50 million pound defender. I think he's a 25 million pound defender. And if you pay that much money for him, I think that's a good bit of business as well. But, you know, you also talk about players like Paul Pogba, who have come in for humongous money. And I'm one of his biggest fans, because technically I think he's one of the best in the world. I just don't think he's suited to Premier League football, where the pace of the game is very quick. It's very intense. Cristiano Ronaldo, phenomenal football player. But again, you have to look at the players that were working around him last season. Have they benefited from him being there? I don't think they have. I think they've learned a few bits about themselves personally, what they can improve on outside of actual football. But I don't know if they've improved as individuals. Marcus Rashford, you have to look at him as an example. I'm a fan of his also. So I think there's been a lot of players that have come in, a lot of money's been spent, but in the wrong areas for the wrong players. And I think that would be an area that they would have to look at improving.
It is interesting, because there was so much hype about Paul Pogba. He was the one player there was so much expectations on him, and it does look like he will be leaving this summer more than not, Rene. Would you qualify, would you define Paul Pogba's tenure at Manchester United, considering the expectation and the money involved, to be a failure?
Well, failure is a big word. I wouldn't necessarily use that. But has he lived up to the expectations? No, I don't think so. What the expectations that he had, but he knew what sort of expectations would come with going to Manchester United. They always are the same. You know, United should always compete for the Premier League, get in the Champions League, and compete into the final stages of the Champions League and other trophies. That's when you come to Manchester United, and he has the stature of a footballer to live up to that. And I agree with Jermaine. It has proven a fact that, you know, whether maybe not everything has clicked within in terms of, you know, the players around him, the system, whatever it is, or, you know, does he actually suit the Premier League? So, and what disturbed me a little bit, or frustrated me a little bit, is that Paul has never really outspoken his commitment to Manchester United. He's never really come out there and says, listen, I'm a Manchester United player, I'm going to bring Man United back to where they belong, blah, blah, blah. There's always been issues about, is he going to stay, is he going to leave? And that doesn't sit well with the fans. And not, listen, it's not only one player, it's not only Paul Pogba. We're just talking about Paul Pogba, but like Jermaine says, there's many, many more issues, problems that need to be addressed before United is going to get back on the right track, in my opinion.
Do you think, Rene, considering you are close to Sir Alex Ferguson, do you think he's sitting at home and thinking to himself, I did the right thing by letting Paul Pogba go?
Well, at that time, we did everything basically to bring Paul, you know, into the first team setup. You know, he was training with us, he's played a few games with us. We really, you know, and he had a fantastic contract in front of him. What actually happened there, I don't know. There was some issue with an agent, I think. I can't remember that correctly. But obviously, he left the club for Juventus, and he's actually kicked on when he was at Juventus. He did really well. He got into the French national team, and he does extremely well over there. But since he's come back, you know, it's not really happened for him or Manchester United.
Yeah. Do you think he will stay? Do you think he will leave in the summer, Rene?
I think he will leave.
Jermaine?
I think he'll leave, and I think it would be the right decision if he does leave, because we saw how good he was at Juventus. We saw how good he is when he's playing with the national side, and that's the player I want to see playing again. I want to see that guy come back, and I don't think we'll see that at Manchester United. So I think he will leave for those reasons.
So this summer, then, when you look at this side, if you want to talk about rebuilding, obviously this might depend on whoever the new permanent manager might just be, because it would depend on how certain players might fit his system and might not. But Looking overall, Rene, looking at this squad right now, who do you think is going this summer, or you think deserves to go this summer?
Without necessarily jumping into names, but you just have to look at the fact that Manchester United at the moment has got about 6 players who are over 35. Yeah, with Ronaldo, Cavani, Matic, Mata, etc. That's not the age where you want to build the future around. And then you got about 5 or 6 players who are around the 30 mark, 32, 31, 30, where you can put some questions whether are they good enough for Manchester United. So you already talk about, a team, 11 players where you put question marks, are they going to be there next season? So I think this needs to have a really bold approach for whoever2 in, together with the hierarchy of Manchester United. Let's say, okay, what is our team going to look like over the next, let's say, 2 to 3 seasons? And then we are back to competing against Manchester United, against Liverpool and City for the title, with our identity that is known to Manchester United, playing offensive, attractive, dynamic football. All the things that we don't see at the moment. So that requires a lot of work, from many people. But that's the only way to get it right. You get the right people in, the right quality, and then it's all comes down to the work on the pitch that you do. And like Jermaine says, give the manager that comes in, give him time to stamp his identity on that team. But that is another challenge as well, because it needs to be a certain identity that's associated with United, which has always been attacking attractive football and being very, very successful, because that was the combination that Sir Alex Ferguson put in place.
Where do you think then, Jermaine, that Manchester United will end up this season?
This season, I think top half. I think it's going to be difficult for them to get into the Champions League spots. Europa League will be an area I think that they can push for, but again, it's a difficult one.
Conference League then, I presume.
Imagine that. But
I'm going to get my hankies out again.
Look, you're battling with Tottenham, with Arsenal, and who are both in form as well. Tottenham more so than Arsenal at the moment, and obviously Manchester United. So I don't think Champions League is possible. I think Europa League is a possibility, but they've got to pull their finger out and turn these results around very quickly.
Rene, Conference League?
Well, it could well be, but to be fairly honest, I would nearly almost, as a Manchester United fan, I would feel embarrassed to think about that. Manchester United has to go. I mean, I can't even comprehend it. I don't even want to think about it. And basically we're staring at probably maybe the worst season that Manchester United is going to have for many years. So whoever is involved and whoever makes the decision, the one message is making sure you have to get this right. You have to get this next year, the next 3 to 5 years, you have to get it right. If you only look with envy to obviously Manchester City with Pep Guardiola, what he's done there, what he's built, it's a clear identity, the way that they play, how they're going to go about the business, and exactly the same with Liverpool. The charisma that Jurgen Klopp shows, on the sideline, the way how he represents the club, rubs off to everybody in the club, on the pitch. And that is what we need back at Manchester United. We need to have something back that everybody, all the fans can associate themselves with on and off the pitch. So this year, I really do hope they're going to get, some results, which they should, and that they at least keep pushing for that Champions League, although it's going to be a very, very difficult ask.
I really don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, honestly I don't, but it feels like, Rene, we've worked together over the past couple of years, we've revisited this conversation again and again and again, so hopefully we don't have to revisit again this time next season then, all right? So hopefully they do get it right. But thanks to Rene and thanks to Jermaine as well for all your insightful thoughts. We'll catch you guys again very, very soon. And for those of you at home, if you want to catch your match highlights, Astro Go, and more of exclusive content here on our Stadium Astro YouTube page. Take care.